Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mr. Long Island's Search for Truth and Beauty. My name is Michael Watt, aka Mr. Long Island, and our guest this week is Justin Green, the Regional Sales Manager for First Data. And Justin is going to bring us up to speed on the latest and greatest trends in, I don't want to say credit card processing, but purchasing, point of sale payments, how transactions are conducted point of sale, mostly in retail, local, small retail stores.
Correct.
It's fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to digging deep into it. But as we do, speaking of local retailers, before we get into it, we're also going to talk about pizza. And the reason for this is, as diverse as Long Island is, the one thing every town on Long Island has in common is a pizza place. And Long Islanders will drive by dozens of pizza places to get to a really good pizza place. So we're counting on you to add to our collection of great pizza on Long Island. Where do you go for great pizza?
I go to Buonasera, right here actually in Smithtown.
Okay.
And reason being, I probably would have given a different answer 5 years ago, but I was diagnosed with celiac disease.
Okay.
And Buonasera has the best gluten-free pizza, in my opinion. Nice, fluffy crust. So that's my favorite pizza place.
All right, Buonasera is where?
They're right in Smithtown, on the corner of 111 and Main Street.
Very good. Right by the Millennial Diner, if I understand?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. Correct. And believe it or not, I think I mentioned to you, we did have someone come on and discuss gluten-free pizza, so we know it exists.
I saw that episode, good cookbook.
Yeah, and that's great that you found it, because I would hate to not be able to eat pizza. That would drive me nuts. So, all right, so Justin, you're in marketing, you work with small retail. Tell us a little bit about what you do, about First Data, and then kind of give us a flavor for what's coming down the pike.
Thanks, Mike. I manage 15 individuals in New York and New Jersey, and our main goal is to help small businesses grow and be able to compete kind of on the same level as the big box retailers. So what started out as what people considered merchant services or just payments has really grown into more of helping businesses market their business, advertise, keep track of trends. We've all seen new cell phones come out with cell phone technology. And what we're able to do is bring that technology down to the small to medium-sized business level.
Right, and I'm going to jump in here for a second, because this is a subject near and dear to my heart. My day job is I run an association for convenience stores and gas stations. And Long Island is kind of unique in that the rest of the country is pretty much run by corporate-owned stores. Even your gas stations are, quick, whatever it's called, quick checks,
quick serve,
Wawa's, 7-Elevens, all these big gas stations. Oh, and pizza places, you really don't see pizza outside of Long Island or New York City, and even restaurants. Most of them it's Applebee's and Cheesecake Factory, things like that. So we're like the last bastion of independently owned retail operations, and it's getting harder and harder for them to compete against the bigger chains.
I think we make that a little bit easier. Luckily, the big Fortune 500 companies, they popularize the technology. So for instance, we've seen at some coffee chains, you'll have the cell phone soft card, they call it. So instead of a plastic gift card, now we have these digital wallets that are on phones. Originally, somebody would have to be a gigantic chain of maybe 50, 100, 1,000 locations to get that technology. Now a small to medium-sized business can have that same technology in their store for less than $30 a month.
And that's a great point, because they are competing, and when you're competing, you're a locally owned restaurant, and you're competing with Applebee's. It's even tougher to get employees, because the young people want to work with the big corporations so they can learn how all this stuff works. Now the small mom and pop retail has access to that technology, because a lot of the bleeding edge stuff has been taken care of.
Exactly. And now there's a lot of things changing. I mean, if you do any travel and you go to Europe or you go to even Canada, you'll realize that the credit cards that we're carrying around today in the U.S. are archaic. I mean, the MagStripe technology has been around for 5 decades.
And the MagStripe everywhere else is used everywhere else, and that's why you don't see these big problems with these the hacking and things like that?
Well, the EMV chip.
EMV, okay.
And EMV stands for EuroPay, MasterCard, and Visa. So it's an association. They came together to come and find the best secure protocol to have credit cards be more protected. So if you think about MagStripes being around for 5 decades, that's given criminals 5 decades to come up with ways to infiltrate the system, let's say. Recently, you might have heard about a famous steakhouse in New York where they were skimming credit cards all day long, and they go back to their dorm room, they duplicate the cards. You as a consumer, you have no idea your card's even been stolen, and they have shoppers out there going to different places, and all of a sudden you get your statement 30 days later and you say, oh, I don't remember buying a Rolex. So that technology really has to go away. It's old. It's the dinosaur.
Right.
And EMV has mandated that by 2015, merchants in the U.S. must, October 15th of 2015, they need to be able to be off of the EMV magstripe data, go to EMV.
Okay.
And what's going to happen is if they do not, they have a huge liability shift. In the past, an issuing bank would have paid for that Rolex.
Right.
Now, if they are not EMV compliant and the issuing bank is, now the merchant loses that money.
Oh, wow. And you know, it's funny because as you're telling that story, I was thinking back to the late 90s when I worked for an internet company. And the biggest challenge then was convincing people it was okay to put their credit card onto the internet. And I remember we would work with one site and boy, there's all the credit card numbers. And I'm like, thank God I'm an honest guy because I had access to. And then the bank stepped in and said, no. You can't let Michael Watt have access to the back end and see these credit card numbers. And they made that happen, and in their own self-interest. You're kind of seeing the same thing here.
Yeah, there are two aspects, and the other aspect is what's called PCI compliance, which is what you probably went through.
Okay.
When you accept credit cards, you have to follow what they call payment card industry compliance. So they want to make sure you're not storing data unsafely, something where somebody could get it. Maybe you're scribbling down something and you leave it someplace. So every year, merchants are required to go through PCI certification, showing that they are certified and they're taking cards in the safest way.
That's interesting. You really have to be up to speed on what the technology is, and you can't leave anything to chance.
You really do. You have to have a good consultant that looks at your payments and makes sure that you're doing things the best way, but also doesn't most necessarily have to be the cheapest way.
Right.
I know a lot of small businesses like it to be the cheapest way, but one breach could cost them their business hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And you're 100% right. You know, the margins are so narrow in these small stores that added expense becomes a bit of a headache. But if the reality is they're going to start losing sales or their inability to let people purchase that way, they're going to have to make that adjustment.
Without a doubt, I think you see very few businesses that don't accept payments today. I was actually quite embarrassed. I took a train to the city the other day, and I realized I got on and I forgot to get a ticket. And the conductor comes around and he asked me for my ticket. I actually had to I got fined.
They kill you with that.
I don't carry cash anymore.
Right.
So most of U.S. citizens are like that. So businesses really have to take credit cards nowadays. People just assume that they do.
Right.
And when it comes down to that, if a business does not, somebody will walk in there one time and then they may never go back because they say, oh, well, my company requires me to put it on a corporate card.
Right.
If I can't put it on my corporate card, I'm not going to go to that business. So that steakhouse may lose out on a lot of corporate occasions.
Right.
Secondarily, if you're at let's say a dinner with a date or a friend,
right,
are you going to penny pinch and watch how much the bill is if you can take credit cards? So you're not going to worry about
right.
it. You're going to spend a higher dollar amount. So giving up a percentage of the sale when you can increase sales just makes sense.
Well, it's interesting. I'm a little bit older than you, and I remember when I first got into the restaurant business in the 70s, if somebody gave you a credit card, like the restaurant guy had a booklet, and you had to look in the booklet to make sure the number wasn't there. I mean, it was such an arduous process that most of the restaurants like, I don't even want to take the credit cards. Now you just swipe them, but now you're saying the game is going to change, and you have less than a year to make that adjustment, because up until then, the credit card, if it doesn't go through, the bank eats it. After October 2015, the merchant eats it.
Correct, if they're not up to speed. And you bring up a good point of the book. You know, merchants, a lot of people, they look at their statements and it's hard to read.
Right.
The fee that they're charged is called a discount rate. Now, what other business do you know charges a fee and then calls it a discount? With our industry, we call it that for them switching off of that book to digital.
Okay.
So this is almost like the new age of switching from the old school book to a nice chip card to make things more secure.
So it's more, it's in the industry's best interest to get the retailers to make that transition as seamless as possible, and you see them doing everything they can to kind of hold the retailer's hand through it, or are they just going to say, this is it, you got to learn?
It depends on who they're with, you know,
Okay.
who they're processing with. You know, that's not the exciting part anymore of my job. What's nice is we've seen that taking payments is great. It's almost a necessary evil, but we like to help the businesses grow. We like to be able to help them grow their, you know, bottom line. So we've done with payments, found a way to do marketing with payments. And that brings up a conversation we had where a certain store likes to track the weather and how it affects sales.
Okay.
Well, we're able to track through payments. You can look at yourself versus last year. So
Right.
you want to see how you did versus last year. You may want to see how the weather impacted your business.
Right.
But we can also make it so that you see where your shoppers are from. So if you're going to do some targeted advertising, we know advertising dollars are tight, and you have $500 to do a penny saver or a carrier pigeon article, where should I send that? Well, we're able to show them on a map where all of their customers are.
Wow.
You can take notes and you look and you see, okay, last year it was a very hot St. Patrick's Day. We didn't have enough staff. Let's staff up really heavy, or vice versa. Make sure that you're not overstaffing and lower your costs for employees as well. So that's the more exciting part to me of the payments industry now, is linking things like that and data analytics, which is a hot topic nowadays.
Well, let's get into that, because I was fascinated. About 10 years ago, if you remember, Florida got hit with like 3 hurricanes in a row. And after the first 2, an enterprising manager of a Kmart down in Florida looked at the register receipts and said, what were the 2 or 3 items that were purchased within the hours leading up to the hurricane? He made a very interesting discovery. The 2 most popular items for both hurricanes was beer, which is kind of a no-brainer,
Yeah.
and strawberry Pop-Tarts, both times. Now, they never explained why.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why the strawberry Pop-Tarts? I want to know. But for the 3rd hurricane, guess what was right up front as people walked in? Cases of beer and cases of strawberry Pop-Tarts. Your company, First Data, is capable of providing that kind of analytical information, or this purchasing process can help a retailer with that? Walk us through that a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. As soon as they start processing payments with us, we're going to keep a record. And over that record, you're not just going to be able to look at yourself a year ago and keep notes and look at weather, but you're also going to be able to see competitors in your area that are the same size.
Wow.
So we compare on a chart, let's say I'm a deli.
Okay.
We're not going to compare you to Panera Bread. We're going to compare you to other small delis that do, let's say, $300,000 a year in sales.
Wow.
So because we really handle 1 out of every 2 swipes in the United States, that data is very valuable to the small business. Now, maybe 5-10 years ago, you wouldn't be able to afford that as a small business. Now, for less than what you pay for a cup of coffee a day, the small business owner can have that data, which helps them.
And you can look at trends over the course of a couple of months, a couple of
years.
What did we do a year ago today? And then, let's say it's the 4th of July, 2015, and you're looking at the weather and it's going to be really hot. And you look back at 2013, it was really wet.
Yeah.
So you know not to compare apples to oranges in that point.
Exactly.
And it's not that you don't need any sophisticated computers, anybody with a laptop and access to a good company.
All you need is a computer.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, we're swiping those cards every day. We have that data. So it's very simple user interface. You log in, you could put in as much information as you want or as little. That data is already there because we're doing the transaction.
And how about the transaction itself? Again, I work with gasoline retailers. I'm envisioning a day where you pull up to the pump and you wave your phone at the pump and you're good to go.
Right now is a perfect time for the retailers to get that technology, simply because, as we discussed before, with the EMV mandate, they're going to need those new chip card readers.
Wow.
So they might as well get near field communication readers, which is what you're saying, the wave, the tap and go.
Okay.
So a lot of merchants already have that capability. If you've gone to any of the big chain stores, you've seen
Right.
that they have tap and go technology to accept things, all these digital wallets and things. I haven't seen them much at the pay at the pump or the automated fuel dispensers yet, but because we have that EMV mandate, it only makes sense to get near field communication.
You have to do it anyway. You might as well adapt, because after that happens, Especially the under 40 crowd. You know, if you pull in and, oh, you want me to go all the way in, or you want me to swipe with my card, I don't even have my card with me. I got my thing on the end of my keychain. You're going to start losing those sales.
Exactly.
And it's really in your best interest because you can track those sales much better.
Exactly. I mean, there's even technology that we have now where when you walk into a location, it can have your picture pop up on the screen. So say I'm in a college town.
Wow.
And I have, new employees all the time.
Right.
Instead of you walking up and them having no idea who Michael Watt is, you could walk up to the cash register. They'll see from your cell phone beacon that that's you. Your picture pops up. They'll even see what your favorite food is. And they could say, Mr. Watt, would you like the coffee and croissant like you did last week? With that, you can also do offers. So instead of the old-fashioned punch cards that you go and you punch in 9 sandwiches, get the 10th free, we can put all that on your phone.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that blows me away. It's a little scary. Having grown up watching Big Brother in 1984,
Yeah.
It's a little scary.
Yeah. Well, with big data, and that's the thing. I saw an article one time where a big Fortune 500 company, the title of the article was, X company knows daughter is pregnant before parents. Because these big companies track that she bought a pregnancy test. Then they track that you're buying diapers. Then they see formula. So all of the big companies around the world are tracking all of this data. What we do is bring that capability down to the small business level. That way they can compete with the big box retailers.
And it's really no different than if you're ordering a book through Amazon and you order, Marianne Williamson's latest The Return of Love. And they say, well, the last people who ordered this also ordered this, or here's 5 other books that you might be interested in that you ordered before. It's there. The information's there. Now they're just making it available to the local retailer.
Well, if you look at Google, and I don't know if you've ever done this, but if 2 people with your laptops sit next to each other and you both Google something, you're going to get different answers.
Right.
It's tailored to you. Recently I bought a pair of Allen Edmond shoes. So all of a sudden, whenever I'm going to these websites, I'm seeing Allen Edmond advertisements next to the page that I'm looking at.
That's also a little scary.
So that it's kind of unavoidable,
right,
in the society that we live in today, and with the giants of the world, the Facebooks and everything like that. People are kind of used to not having that veil of privacy anymore.
Right.
We've given that up for technology and to have things be more convenient for us.
Well, with the Googling, it's funny because as I image it, the Google images. I said, what do you get when you type in Long Island? And my picture came up. I was like, wow, this is great. Google thinks I'm synonymous with Long Island, and my cousin's like, you idiot. It's because it's your computer. You don't go to the library. You don't get that. And the other fascinating thing, I remember when I was teaching marketing a while ago. I was telling the students, you can be at Tower Records and they're going to know you there because of your cell phone. They're going to send you a coupon to your cell phone and you're going to get 10% off or whatever. And it was a great example, except that the technology also put Tower Records out of business. So it was like, I almost came very close to seeing the future. You know?
And that's the same technology that we have. We can make it so that when you're in the store, you get push notifications via text, via email. You can even do it during slow times. If it's slow, why advertise? When it's slow, you want to push out a bunch of text messages, that's fine. The other really cool thing that we have technology-wise, we know the restaurant
Hang on,
houses.
I got a friend of mine's tending bar, a local restaurant. It's a little slow. He has a database of his regulars.
Yeah.
He shoots out, next 100 people come down, first drinks on me.
I like that.
Yeah.
See, that's the type of technology that's cool, and I think that's why people allow that privacy kind of to be broken a little bit. But when it comes down to it, you could send out these message notifications, but another cool thing I learned this week is I didn't know how expensive those buzzers are at restaurants.
Okay.
So these systems, you show up, I don't know if you've ever gone to a restaurant, they don't have a table, they give you a little buzzer.
Right.
Well, it turns out these things are thousands of dollars, and each one of these little units costs $20, $30. If you lose those units, you're losing maybe a couple $100 a month.
Right.
We have the ability through our POS systems to just send a text message.
Wow.
That way you don't have to worry about carrying around a buzzer, and the merchant doesn't have to worry about losing all of those little buzzers.
And you get in their cell phone or their email. That's great.
Exactly.
Justin, as expected, this has been absolutely fascinating. I have a sneaking suspicion we've only scratched the surface. I look forward to having you back. We can learn more and really keep people up to speed on what's happening in the retail environment. But the good news is all the technology that's really made it easier for bigger companies to compete is now readily available to small mom and pop retailers on Long Island.
Exactly. Thank you, Michael.
Great. Thank you, Justin. This has been yet another episode of Mr. Long Island's Search for Truth and Beauty. My name is Michael Watt, aka Mr. Long Island, and I thank you for your time today.